This is my review of the new Callaway Rogue X iron. Callaway claim this is their longest iron they've ever made. Unapologetically, the longest iron they've ever made. It sits in the Rogue family, so you've got the Rogue Iron and the Rogue Pro. If you want to see more information about those two clubs, check out my channel. But this is all about the Rogue X. I'm going to test it on GC Quad with Pro V1s. I've got the 7, the 4 and the pitch and wedge to test to see if these are ridiculously long. I'm Rick Shiels and I'm down here at Quest Golf Academy. If you are new to my channel, welcome. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button. And if you are not a subscriber yet, hit the subscribe button. It keeps you connected to all the videos I post on my YouTube channel so you don't miss a single thing. I'm going to give this a hit. Now, this is their longest 7-iron they've ever made. And the reason being longest 7-iron they've ever made is because they have cranked the lofts to a new record low. I'm going to hit one, then we're going to talk about it. So this is the 7-iron. This is normal length 7-iron. Now I normally carry my 7-iron, my standard 7-iron around 172 to 175 yards. Let's see what this does. I put a flag there at 200 yards. And that carried 197 yards. That's not a 7-iron, ladies and gentlemen, that's a 5-iron. And why I say that carried 196 yards. Why I say that is because traditional loft for a 7-iron is 35 degrees. That's where I would normally see a 7-iron loft sit. More modern era, lofts have got much closer to 30 degrees for a 7-iron. And that's kind of become almost somewhat the industry standard, kind of that 31 to 32. TaylorMade went to a new low last year. They went sub 30 degree loft. They went in at 28.5 degrees for the M2. We have a new leader. This Rogue X 7-iron is 27 degrees of loft. And to put that into some sort of perspective, my 5-iron that I use in my set is 27 degrees of loft. This is a 5-iron with a 7-iron length shaft. Effectively, they've made a 1-length kind of 5-iron lofted monster. So it's going long, it's going ridiculously long. I mean, that is too far to hit a 7-iron. But they have, give Callaway some level of credit, is they're not discouraging that. They're saying that this is long, and that's where it sits. I feel like Joe Miller hitting this 7-iron. I feel like this is the longest 7-iron I've probably ever hit. Let's give it another hit. It's not the best looking iron. It's quite round, it's quite bubbled. So it doesn't look like a 7-iron. I feel like even my ball position, I feel like I've got to go a bit further forward because it feels more like I'm hitting a 5-iron, but with a shorter shaft. Now I didn't hit that very well. I've actually hit that a little bit from the toe. And that's still finished on the green. So you can see there from strike location, very much from the toe. These clubs aren't tailored to me. They're not in the correct lie angle or in the right shaft. So that's why I'm probably going to get a little bit of toe down on my lie angle. But just to show you, that was from the toe, and it still carried 193 yards again. It's unbelievable. I mean, and why I say it's unbelievable, it's because it's just the number on the bottom is not the number that it should be. It's a 5-iron. And I'm going to show you some numbers that are going to back that up. The big things that I'm concerned about is, yes, is the number a big deal on the bottom? To a degree. Because is it going to go high enough? From what I'm seeing, no. Is it going to spin enough? Probably not. Is it going to stop quick enough? Probably not. But if you're after pure distance and you don't care about any of that above that I mentioned, then this might be where you need to look. If you're just looking for distance and you don't care one coyote whether the spin numbers are high or the height is high, this is where you need to look. Let's get one more. I'm actually going to step on this one a little bit. Oh, I just caught it from the bottom. That was a shame. That was hit low on the head, and that's still 190 carry distance. Oh my goodness. And like I say, that's 5-iron. That's where it is. Now stay tuned because we've not finished yet, because the lofts go crazier. The lofts go more mental. It's that's a 7-iron. I'm going to show you that data in a minute. I want to compare it to the Rogue of standard as well, just to show you the kind of the craziness of this loft structure. Let's move on to 4-iron next. So moving into now the 4-iron, and again, I would normally see traditional loft for a 4-iron to sit somewhere in the low 20s. My 4-iron is 24 degrees of loft. Modern day 4-irons are probably getting nearer to 21, 22, but not the Rogue X. The Rogue X is 18.5. It's a 2-iron. Oh man, it's a 2-iron in a 4-iron length. Let's give it a hit. What's surprising with this club, and I took some close-ups before, I really apologise, by the way, that the close-ups look a bit scrappy on this. This is a club that Callaway have sent me that has already been pre-hit. I don't know who the hell pre-hit it, but they are pretty battered, and the wedge is really battered. The 7-iron was brand new. The 4-iron, it doesn't actually look as strong as 18.5. Whether that's because it's got a little bit more club head behind and whether the offset makes it look like it's got more loft, it doesn't look as stupidly strong. Now, I've put a flag out there at 250. Now that's Dustin Johnson style-esque 4-iron length. Let's see what happens with the 4-iron of this. I mean, that's just outrageous. It's nearly on the front edge from a 4-iron. I mean, downwind, downhill, yes, I might get 4-iron there at 250. But never in a million years am I getting there with 4-iron traditionally. But flight-wise, I'm looking at that coming out like it's not a 4-iron. If you gave me this club and said hit that, I would go, that feels like a shorter length 2-iron. 3-iron maybe at a push, but a shorter length 2-iron. The 2-iron I carry in my bag is 18 degrees. That's to put that into some perspective. These are 2 clubs stronger than standard sets. Now they sound pretty epic. I mean, I shouldn't use the word epic, that's last year's. They sound pretty solid, they seem pretty powerful. They sound like rockets coming off the head. Now, there is some structure behind the head, urethane microspheres behind the head, which is helping with different sound on contact. I'm still not maybe seeing that, hearing or feeling that. They still sound pretty clicky and loud to me, and maybe not the softest feel. That was a bad hit, but it still managed to get there. They're just silly. They're just silly long. Let's give one more a hit. Trying to go at that a bit more. For some golfers, it will build a level of confidence up. It will. It's got to do. The fact that, you know, they'll hit 6-iron longer than the pals. They'll hit the 7-irons longer than the playing partners have played with for years and years. I just think practicality of it, it's not, is it going to make you any better at golf? Possibly not, but do people buy equipment just to make them better at golf? Sounds like a daft question that, but I don't always think that's the case. I think people buy equipment to either have bragging rights across friends or just enjoy the game more. It's an interesting idea. Let's move to the pitching wedge next, which is at 41 degree of loft. So moving into the pitching wedge, this is 41 degrees of loft. To put that into some perspective, normal wedge lofts, pitching wedge, is around 46 to 48 degrees of loft. So this really is a strong 9-iron. It's an 8.5 iron. So I put the flag there at 150. Now, for me, this is the one, oddly, that looks the most different lofted. For me, visually, this does not look like a pitching wedge whatsoever. I've not been the biggest fan of the Rogue wedge shaping this year. They look very round and spoon-like, not particularly the best looking wedge. But that just looks like a 9-iron with a wedge shaft in it, really. Let's give it a hit at 150 yards away. Don't think that's quite going to reach, actually. That's a bit of a pushy one. Nope, take it back, it did reach. I'll be honest, I didn't actually hit that well and it still got there. Height-wise, it's nowhere, not even close to how I visually see a pitching wedge. That just came out like a 9-iron. It just came out flat, it came out forward. It didn't seem to have a lot of height. I'm going to compare these numbers to the Rogue in a minute and the Rogue Pro. But that's just not the loft of a wedge. It's the speed of a pitching wedge, but I'm not getting the loft and maybe not so much the spin. That stopped pretty quickly in fairness to it. Let's give it one more with the Rogue X, and then we'll dive into some of the numbers and then give you a conclusion of the Rogue X irons. That was higher. I feel like I had to force that higher still though. All slightly favouring the right there. In fairness to them, all stopped pretty quickly, but not bad for a 9-iron. I mean pitchy wedge. Right, let's have a look at some numbers and I'll give a conclusion of the Rogue X irons. Okay, so dive back into my little red book of testing from when I tested the Rogue and the Rogue Pro. I want to compare the numbers that I've just received from Rogue X and compare it to these. So Rogue X numbers, we see average carry distance from the shots that I hit 193 yards carry distance. That's bonkers. 128 ball speed, which is very fast for a 7-iron, and I will, review it as a 7-iron. 4,600 RPM spin, which is on the very, very low side. I was getting peak height, and this is where it's interesting. I'm going to come back to this in a minute. Peak height at 31 yards in the air and descent angle at 43 degrees, which actually isn't that bad for a 7-iron of this caliber. 4-iron, I was carrying the ball 220 yards on average with the 18.5 degree 4-iron. I was getting 140 ball speed, which is hot, I must admit. Under 4,000 spin at only 3,500, and really getting 235 total distance. Peak height was coming out at 25 yards up in the air, and 35.9 was its descent angle, which again, compared to the Rogue, which I'll show in a minute, isn't far off. Pitching wedge, carrying at 146, which is like where I normally see my 9-iron. Spin rate at 7,600, which is mega low for a pitching wedge. 108 miles per hour ball speed. Peak height was coming in at 35 yards up in the air, and descent angle was 50. So really, for me, just the numbers are a club, sometimes 2 clubs away from where I believe they should be. But if I was testing it just solely against Rogue Standard, I see a difference in 7-iron distance, and I think there's about 3 degrees of difference between the 2 clubs here of Rogue Standard and Rogue X. I'm seeing an extra on this 15 yards extra carry distance, which is definitely on the high side and a much lower spin rate. But when you compare the peak height and the descent angle, it matches it brilliantly. So I got the same peak height, and I got almost the same descent angle at around 43 to 44 degrees. So even though the spin's low, I'm somewhat confident to a degree that ball's going to stop a bit. But that's me hitting them at 92 miles per hour clubhead speed. If you're hitting them slower, are you going to get the height? Are you going to get the descent angle? That's something you're going to have to test as each individual watching. 4-iron. On my Rogue Standard, I was 207 carry, now I'm 220, 13 yards difference again, but that's the extra strength in lofts. They are 2 degrees stronger lofts, but again, peak height, descent angle matched up exactly the same. And in the pitching wedge, finally, I was carrying the pitching wedge only 4 yards longer with Rogue X, but peak height and again, descent angle was actually really, really good. So there's a chance of this ball stopping on the green if you hit them hard enough. The way that the centre of gravity has been lowered on the head, they have some potential that ball might just stop. I'm not going to compare these to Rogue Pro because they're a different kettle of fish, and I thought there's no real point in doing that. If you're looking at either Rogue X or Rogue Pro, they're too contrasting, too different to each other. Interesting points, a couple I want to make. First off, we look at the price, and these are, you're not going to get a lot of change from a full set out of $1,000 or £1,000. So that they match up the same price as the Rogue Standard and the Rogue Pro. Couple of things, who are these going to be aimed at? Well, for me, they're aimed at completely and utterly the guy who just wants to hit the golf ball further. That is simply it. By any means possible, he doesn't care, she doesn't care how they hit the ball further, they just want more distance. They don't care if they're cheating the system by changing the loft. All they know is they turn up on a Saturday and play against Bill, and that, I'm trying to think of a guy's name who would use these. Tim wants to beat Bill, and Tim wants an iron that is stronger, and Tim wants an iron that hits the ball further than Bill, and that is the end of the story, until Tim might just fork out $1,000 to do such thing. Will it make him a better golfer? Probably not. Probably not. Will it make him feel slightly better? Probably yes. Another side note, the stronger loft you go for, there's more chance potentially of hitting that golf ball more offline. As you go flatter in the face, the club has more dominance of the ball's starting location, often sometimes curvature of the golf ball, as you go flatter lofted. And that's also a consideration. If you just after distance only and would jeopardize direction, great. These might be a nice fit for you, but you've got to be honest. Bill's going to know that Tim is playing with a stronger lofted club, and that's kind of where it's going to be at. Guys, that was my full review of the Rogue X iron. I'm not going to see these out on the golf course. I just don't massively see the point for me testing them out on the golf course. I might try and do with someone else down the line potentially. If you like the video, hit that like button. I'd love to hear your thoughts with the comments down below. If you're new to my channel or have been a long time watcher but not yet subscribed, subscribe now. It is free to do. You hit that subscribe button and you are always connected to my channel. You will never miss a video. And to go even one step further, go onto my YouTube homepage or the app on your phone, hit that little bell button, and that will keep you notified as soon as I release a video. You will be one of the first people to know about it. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned, lots more to come. And that was the Rogue X iron, or I'm going to call them the Joe Miller iron that Callaway brought out. Oh, Joe would have been a better name than Tim. Anyway, we'll see you all soon.